I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the tragic murders of Keith, Jennifer, Sophia, and Jesse Caneiro, a wonderful family from New Jersey. The accused is Paul Caneiro, Keith's brother, who prosecutors say was stealing money Alec Murdaugh style. Here's the story. The case against Paul Caneiro unfolds like a nightmare born inside a family feud. Prosecutors allege that in April of 2018, Paul drove to his brother Keith's house where he murdered Keith, then killed his wife, then stabbed his children before he set the house on fire. Investigators say the crimes were deliberate, methodical, and fueled by resentment and a conflict between the brothers concerning money. Authorities allege Paul used firearms, accelerants, and careful timing to carry out the attacks, then attempted to destroy evidence by igniting the home. The fire initially masked the murders, but the autopsies revealed much more. Paul was arrested within days, and prosecutors laid out a chilling narrative of jealousy, rage, and betrayal, one that transformed a family dispute into one of New Jersey's most horrifying crimes. Remember, in this case, two fires we're talking about. The first one allegedly set by Paul Caneiro at his brother's house after the quadruple murder. Then there's the fire at his own house about 20 minutes away in another town. His fire allegedly set subsequently, but that is the one where firefighters respond to first. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. And Cody, the firefighters who were at Paul Caneiro's house are asking him about his hand. What do we know about it?
Well, Vinny, what we do know is that he injured it at some point, but the observations of the fire personnel on the scene and what Paul Caneiro says actually happened seem to differ a little bit. So let's go ahead and take a look at images of Paul Caneiro's left hand showing the injury. You see it there, Vinny. Paul says he hit his hand on a door. But again, there's a fire at his home. Firefighters were asking him whether the hand was burned. Now, these pictures were taken sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. Later that day in the evening, so about roughly 16 hours or so after the alleged murders took place. Take a listen to an officer testifying about the photos of this injury.
Detective, what are we looking at here? Who are we looking at?
That is a photograph of the defendant.
Okay, and specifically, I'm going to draw your attention to his left hand there. Okay, and is that what you had referred to earlier when you indicated you saw some sort of injury?
Yes.
Okay. Can we move to the next slide, please? Maybe slide 4, I believe. Okay, and what are we looking at here?
That's just a more close-up picture of his left hand and the injury.
Did you get to make observations? I think you said you did, of the injury earlier while you were at the scene?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any difference in the way it looked from the time you were at the scene until these pictures were taken?
The swelling had increased by the time I took this picture.
And now we can move on to the last slide, 5. And what are we looking at here?
Picture of the defendant's left hand.
It's just closer up?
Closer version of it, yes.
Okay, thank you. What happens at about 12:15 a.m. now on that next day, 11/21/18?
The defendant was charged with 1 count of arson.
Was anything done with the defendant's clothes that he was wearing?
They were secured as evidence by Detective Kettle.
And was anything done with his cell phone?
That was also secured as evidence.
And Vinny, also take a listen to what the fire marshal had to say about his conversation with Paul that day as well. Take a listen.
I was told that he burned his hands, so I asked, he burned his hands? He just said no, I hit them on the door when he was going through the front door.
What specifically did Mr. Caneiro say to you about his hand?
He said he hit his hand on the front door.
I'm sorry?
When he was walking through.
Okay.
So, Vinny, judgment will be in the eye of the beholder, of course. There's a fire at his home. Fire personnel are asking if he burned his hand. He says he hit his hand on a door. We see the image there. It looks sort of like a puncture wound, but we'll have to see how the jury takes that picture in.
Absolutely, but significant, important. Cody's going to be with us the whole hour. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. What do the hand photos prove? Going to need some help with this one. Joining me, board-certified forensic pathologist Dr. Priya Banerjee is with us, and criminal defense attorney and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Mata, is with us. All right, Dr. Banerjee, I'll begin with you. You take a look at those photos. What do you see? Is it consistent with banging a hand? Is it consistent with a burn? What do you make of it?
You know, I think my first thought was, wow, there's a lot of swelling on that hand. There's a lot of red discoloration. So within that back of the hand, like Cody was saying, it almost looks like a puncture wound. Now, we have to think about what the backstory is, right? Did he stab himself while hurting others? Now, and after that, did he touch a hot surface to get the redness? Is that just bruising? But even from a distance, look how rounded that hand looks. It almost looks like, sounds silly, but when you blow up a glove, a medical glove, and it sort of is rounded and the fingers look tight. Do you see that? That it looks like he can't bend it out of pain and tightness. And the amount of redness on the fingers is really remarkable. And in the distance, you can see is what I would call his more normal right hand, although I haven't seen other pictures of it. This is really worrisome. And you can see a lot of redness around those one or two central sort of dark areas. Again, could it be a stab wound? Could it be blunt force injury, like hitting something? But then there's marked redness and what we call erythema associated with the skin.
So this is 16 hours after the fire is started at his brother's house, and maybe 12 hours or so, or maybe a little less, the fire at his own house. How does that work into the equation if he suffered that injury 12 to 16 hours prior to that photo?
Right. So again, the swelling is going to develop. The redness is going to develop. Any bruising could develop. Now, if it's any components of burn, you have to remember that the degree of the burn. So we grade burns like first, second, third degree, how deep they are, whether they'll be like just redness, like a sunburn, or if it'll be blistering, or even like, you know, black discoloration, that would be much deeper. So maybe we could see some blistering. Again, I think the amount of damage to the back of the hand, especially from a distance, is really appreciable. There's that central area of abrasion or puncture, then there's surrounding redness, but even in the paler areas of the hand, it just looks very tight and painful. You can see him sort of having those fingers, they almost look a little sausage-like because they're swollen. He can't easily bend them into a fist.
All right, Bob Mata. So what do these photos prove inside of a courtroom where you spend many, many hours?
Well, I think I'd like to play prosecutor, surprisingly, first. I think, and I would like our esteemed colleague here to chime in on my theory. What it looks like to me is a puncture wound on the top of the hand with the bruising surrounding it. We know for a fact that both of the kids were stabbed many, many, many times. The sister-in-law was also stabbed multiple times. To me, it seems consistent with, and you know, doctor, when you're involved in a knife fight or you're trying to keep a victim under control, you're typically using your offhand, the weapons in your other hand. And to me, it seems consistent almost with the butt or the handle of the knife striking the top of his hand while he was trying to control one of the victims. That's what it feels like. It looks like to me. It certainly doesn't look like a burn in any way, shape, or form. To me, if I'm the defense, I'm probably arguing he was panicked. He was in his house. He's trying to move things around.
I think he said it hit the door, baby. It hit the door.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said. You know, if I was his lawyer, I would have said, well, I wish you wouldn't have said that because it doesn't really look like you hit a door handle or a doorknob with it. But, I mean, if you're stuck with that, if you're the defense, I guess you're stuck with it. But if I'm the prosecutor, I'm really trying to kind of like frame it the way that I think that it should be framed, which is it looks very consistent with the butt or the handle of the knife striking his hand during the attacks on the kids and his sister-in-law.
Dr. Banerjee, would there be any way to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty to offer an opinion in a courtroom to that just based on pictures, or is more needed for an expert to do that?
counsel here that I'm very suspicious that those marks are puncture. Now, there's redness around it that can be explained by bruising. Now, my concern is when I've seen that, let's say, as a defensive injury, although this looks like, the assailant, but on any injury, if you will, I have a hard time explaining the degree of swelling and the redness of the fingers. That's what gets me. Is there a superimposed injury, like a heat injury on top of a stab wound? And this is getting a little bit beyond me in the sense I don't treat living patients, but is there sort of superimposed injuries, or he got scalded by a fire after he had that stab wound injury? But I do agree that not all of it is easily sort of chalked up to the fire. Why would you have those central marks? Now, photos are as good as or I can interpret what as good as the photos are that I'm given. And so, is there skin separation, or is it just superficial? I don't know what more is available for evaluation in the hand.
All right, Dr. Priya Banerjee, we appreciate your valuable time. Thank you so much. Bob Mata is going to stick around. Coming up next, why were those items that were found in the same backpack? Wait till you hear what the items were.
The defendant pointed that loaded handgun at his brother, and he pulled the trigger 6 times. 5 of those shots hit Keith.
Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair. So he killed his wife and another man.
He was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage continues Tuesday morning on Court TV.
What this case is not is some made-for-TV movie with plot twists and shocking revelations and surprise endings. Make absolutely no mistake, this is a case about the evidence and where that evidence led and who that evidence led to.
Okay, a lot of evidence in this case. This case is going to play out over the course of, it looks like, a couple of months here on Court TV, the case against Paul Caneiro. One of the pieces of evidence in the case involves a backpack that was found. Let's get back to Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, what do we know about this backpack and what was found inside of it?
Well, Vinny, essentially prosecutors are saying that this backpack is the smoking gun here. Now, along with the actual gun that was found in Paul Caneiro's basement, they say this backpack contained gun parts that were used in the shooting of Paul's brother Keith and Keith's wife Jennifer. Now, prosecutors say this backpack was found in the cargo area of one of the Porsches parked at Paul Caneiro's house. Take a listen to the prosecutor explaining it.
You remember Susan's Porsche Cayenne, the car that the defendant backed out of the driveway and that the family sat in and ultimately drove to headquarters. Well, at headquarters, that vehicle was searched. And in the back of that vehicle, in the rear cargo area, officers located a backpack. And inside of that backpack were numerous items belonging to the defendant. His bank cards, his credit cards, his laptop, pieces of his mail, his daughter's savings bonds, his passport, and also the barrel of a 9mm handgun and a gun silencer. Now, in the defendant's basement, there was a metal locker, and located in that metal locker was a gun. It was a 9mm Sig Sauer. That gun, as well as the barrel and the silencer, were sent out to the New Jersey State Police Ballistics Unit for testing. Those conclusions included a finding that bullets and shell casings from 15 Willowbrook Road came from that barrel in his backpack and from the gun in his basement.
So, Vinny, just for our viewers, just in case they didn't catch all of that, these are the contents of the backpack. His bank and credit cards, his laptop, his mail, his daughter's savings bonds, a passport, the barrel of a gun, and a gun silencer. And Vinny, prosecutors are also saying the gun used in the shootings at Keith Caneiro's house was found in Paul's basement. So, Vinny, this doesn't look great for Paul. I mean, you have savings bonds, a passport. It seems like one of two things is going on here. Either he wanted to save the things from a real fire, or it seems like he had a plan to run somewhere.
Yeah, whatever it is, it just does not look good. Whatever the conclusion you can draw from it. Thanks so much, Cody. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Why? Why were those items in the same backpack, right? Gun stuff, mail, passports, laptop, silencer. Joining me, former NYPD officer, retired Nassau County Lieutenant and Commanding Officer Mike Gould, and still with us, Attorney Bob Mata. Mike, what are your thoughts here? Why are all those items in this backpack in the cargo area of the Porsche?
Yeah, Vinny, thanks for having me. So regardless of what his motive was to put them in there, whether he, as Cody said, he was just trying to save them for a fire, they're very damning, particularly the ballistic evidence associated with the gun. So, yeah, this is pretty powerful evidence. You know, the passport, the savings bonds, and all of those things are not quite as compelling, but you have a silencer that matches the gun that's found in his house that is connected to the shooting. I mean, that's pretty compelling evidence.
Yeah, Bob, what story is this backpack telling us?
It's not a good one, Vinny. It's not a good one. And you know, I just want to remind our beautiful viewers that it's always the defendant's choice to go to trial. It's not the attorney's. So, you know, his attorney has to deal with this backpack. I mean, obviously, if you're the prosecution, you're arguing it's consciousness of guilt and or he's going to flee. And it certainly shows premeditation. It shows that, you know, once they matched up that barrel, the silencer, forensically to, you know, the casings that they found at the scene, that's super problematic if you're the defense, right? So it shows that he was planning this, that he had purchased or owned the silencer prior to. He's got his passport. Obviously, the insinuation would be that he's trying to leave the country. He's got all his bank cards with him, brought a few pieces of mail. It's some pretty tough evidence for a defense attorney to get over, and it's really, really powerful evidence for the prosecution.
Yeah, Mike, do you think there was a thought in his mind that he was just going to, like, take off, like leave his family behind? And I'm trying to add that up with the motivation behind all of this, right? The motivation, according to prosecutors, is that the business was going to be folded up. He wasn't going to be able to live his lifestyle anymore. But with the murder of the entire family, he gets his hands on life insurance. He probably gets the proceeds from the insurance for the fire on his brother's $10 million mansion, or however much it cost. He's getting that money. Plus, he gets 100% ownership of the two businesses. That's not a guy who would flee. That's why I'm so confused by the backpack.
Right. So I'm trying to rationalize the mind of an irrational person. I mean, none of this makes sense. This is evil personified. To stare children in the face and stabbing them to death is probably one of the most horrific things I can imagine. It makes Alex Murdaugh look like a Boy Scout. So, you know, we're trying to rationalize that he thinks that this was going to be an organized crime cover-up or something. None of this makes any sense. There's maybe not a direct evidence going to be here, but the totality of the circumstantial evidence is going to be overwhelming. But to rationalize what his thought process was, if you think about how sloppy and crazy the thoughts of us burning his own house, killing this family, it just makes no sense to revenge, resentment, jealousy, envy, those are motives. But, this is one that baffles me. I don't really understand what he was thinking, how he was going to get out from under this.
Bob, do you think, and again, if he did this, do you think his plan was to actually burn down his whole house and hopefully things would be destroyed in the house, and maybe he's just grabbing some things he didn't want destroyed, like savings bonds? If they're burnt up, then they're pretty much gone, I think.
I mean, that's certainly a theory. I think ultimately at the end of the day, law enforcement came over and talked to him pretty quickly, right? Like he calls in 911, my house is on fire. His overarching plan here was to make it look like it was a targeted attack against both families from somebody that was very disgruntled. And I think after probably his initial contact with law enforcement, he probably started to get the sense, if he's not a total moron, that they're looking at me like maybe this thing isn't going to work in terms of fooling anybody and starting with law enforcement. And to me, it just seems to be indicative of the fact that he was planning on jetting. He was on the run. I don't think that this guy was going to be hanging around. I mean, we're talking about a guy who just brutally murdered his family, like his niece and his nephew, the kids, like my esteemed co-panelist said. I mean, that it's unthinkable. I mean, we are dealing with a guy who is just not in reality in any way, shape, or form, or he's just straight up evil, or both. You know, so when you get to this situation where you've got this guy where he's not thinking rationally after he's had contact with law enforcement, you know, I don't think the plan was ultimately to burn down his entire house. You know, I don't think so. I think he probably tried to be careful as he could, probably called into 911 as soon as possible in order to kind of mitigate the damage as much as possible. Because, I mean, look, the guy's life was in shambles in general. Like you said, it does have that kind of Murdoch vibe to it in terms of everything's crumbling down around him, and he's got financial problems on top of it, and he cooks up this half-baked nightmarish crime to try to fix all his issues. And, you know, I think at some point there had to have been some clarity, but who knows?
Yeah. And just like Murdoch made himself the victim with that second shooting, he made himself the victim with the second fire. Mike Gould, Bob Mata, great to have you both with us. Thanks so much. Still to come, does Paul Caneiro's story make any sense? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murders of Keith Caneiro, his wife, and his children, executed inside their sprawling New Jersey mansion, which was also set on fire. On the same day, Keith's brother's house was also torched, but no one died. But one person ended up getting arrested. Here's the story.
What began as a strained sibling relationship ended in catastrophic violence, prosecutors allege. Paul Caneiro is accused of traveling to his brother Keith's home, shooting him, murdering his wife Jennifer and their 2 children before setting the house on fire. Investigators say the fire was meant to erase the crime, but instead revealed it. Firefighters discovered the family inside, and medical examiners later determined the victims were dead before the flames consumed the house. Authorities point to a long history of tension, financial disputes, and allegations of theft. Prosecutors allege Caneiro acted alone, carefully planning the attacks in advance. The case shocked the Colts Neck, New Jersey community and stunned the nation, raising disturbing questions about how money issues inside a family can allegedly escalate into unthinkable violence.
It's taken a long time for this case to get to trial. That happens in the state where I practice, New Jersey. It takes a little bit longer. This one, a real long time. There was a lot of litigation, but not a ton of information was made public about statements, etc. So each day of this trial, we're learning more and more of the facts and some of the things and evidence in the case and reports, etc. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Now we're hearing from some witnesses who spoke with the defendant, Paul Caneiro. What was he telling them?
Well, Vinnie, Paul was trying to keep his story as coherent and believable as possible, of course. And we began with a phone call, Vinnie, between Paul and Keith the night before the murders. Now, we know that he and Keith Caneiro spoke on the phone the night before, and Keith gave him a deadline to get him some financial information for accounts that weren't adding up with their businesses. Now, this call was played in court. It's video from Keith's home surveillance, but we do not hear Paul's side of the conversation. Take a listen.
I need it. Give me the login, Paul. Give me the login, Paul, an hour or two. an hour or two, Paul, 7:30 o'clock.
Now, Vinnie, after Paul and his family get out and escape the fire marshal at the time asked Paul to run through what he had done the previous night through that morning. Take a listen to this.
I went to bed around 6, upstairs in the spare bedroom. About 11 o'clock, he came down to take up some medicine, and he went back upstairs. At some point during that night, he came back downstairs to work on the computer, and then he went back upstairs. I said he woke up to the smoke alarms, and he ran to the master bedroom to get his wife, and then the other bedrooms to get the girls out. And they all went downstairs out the garage.
Now, here, Vinnie, we actually see and hear Paul Caneiro speaking on body cam. Now, this is after fire crews have started working on the fire. An officer approaches Paul and his daughter and asks them questions about the home surveillance system. Take a listen.
Yes. Where is all the DVD stuff for the cameras and everything in the house?
It's in the garage.
It's in the garage?
Yeah.
Where in the garage at?
Walk in the garage and it's all the way up top to the left.
Up to the left? Do you have them running right now?
I've been having problems with stuff in the garage.
You've been having problems with stuff in the garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've taken over one of the companies.
Okay. All right.
Now, Vinnie, this home surveillance system is very crucial. It was one of the main subjects of evidentiary hearings in the years leading up to this trial because prosecutors say Paul is seen on video turning the home surveillance system off before the fires were started. And that evidence was ruled admissible by a judge, so we will be seeing that at some point during this trial. Now, the fire marshal at the time testified that Paul told him about his gas cans at his home and their locations. Take a listen.
Did you ask him if he was aware of the gas can by the garage?
I did.
What was his response?
He said he was not aware of the gas can.
Did you ask him if he owned any gas cans?
I did.
What was his response?
I had 5 or 6.
Did he say where?
The shed.
Did you ask him anything else about the shed?
I asked him when the last time he was in the shed, and he couldn't remember.
Now, Vinnie, the issue with those responses is investigators found this gas can in the garage right near where they believe someone started one of the fires at the home that night. Now, a neighbor also testified about speaking with Paul, and he gives an interesting observation as well. Take a listen.
At any point in time, did you have conversations specifically with Paul Caneiro that morning?
Yes.
And tell us about the conversation. Why were you talking?
I walked down and I spoke to him and the girls, and I asked them, how they were doing, and Paul was a little nervous. He was kind of upset, which I kind of thought was just the fire, and he remarked to me that he was scared that he almost lost his wife with the fire.
Just to clarify, was he emotional?
Yes.
Did he say anything to you about how the fire started or anything along those lines?
Nothing like that.
And Vinnie, of course, we have gone over Paul's left hand injury and how firefighters questioned whether this was a burn injury, but he told them no, that he hit his hand on a door while trying to escape the fire. So, Vinnie, some differing narratives here, some differing conflicting narratives. We'll just have to wait and see how a jury digests all this different witness testimony.
Yeah, basically saying he's home all night, gets awakened by the smoke alarm and saves his family, but in the interim, bangs his hand against the door. All right, that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Does Paul Caneiro's story make any sense? Let's bring in our guest. Joining me, trial attorney Matthew Barhoma is with us, and host of the Pascal Show. Pascal is here. All right, Pascal, what are your thoughts about Paul Caneiro's version of events, his story so far that we're getting from his mouth and through other witnesses?
Well, I got to be honest. He must still be on fire because liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay. Honestly, let's be real. He did this whole thing. He put this whole thing together, then try to make it seem like he's some sort of hero at the end of it when you have all these pieces of evidence pointing right at him. And then the fact that he said that, oh yeah, I was having issues with the garage where the DVD is that records all the surveillance footage. What kind of issues was he having over there? None of this is making any sense. It's absolutely sloppy. He is, in my personal opinion, a dumb criminal. Thank God he's a dumb criminal. And I guess justice is going to be served here very soon.
Well, it may take a little while, though. It's New Jersey.
Yeah.
We take our time with our trials. Matthew Barhoma, what are your thoughts here about Paul Caneiro's story? It's coming in through other witnesses. Some of it is his own words on video. Is he locked into this story? Is the defense locked into it? And does it make any sense?
His story, the short answer is no. The story doesn't make a lot of sense. But the beauty of criminal defense and where he's standing is he doesn't have to provide the most sensible story. It's whether the state could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that his story is false. Okay? And in a criminal case, the defendant, his story doesn't have to be perfectly logical. So he could kind of try and maneuver and backtrack. Although I think it's going to be difficult given some of the other evidence, like the backpack and items that were found. But really, what is his story? He denies committing the murder. He denies setting the houses on fire. He asserts that law enforcement has fixated on him early, and he disputes the prosecution's timeline and motive. So really, it's whether he could keep that house of cards alive to pass muster beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, a big part of it, Pascal, is just saying where he was that night, because prosecutors are going to attempt to prove that he is over at his brother's house, which is 20 minutes away, where he's saying, well, I'm sleeping in the spare bedroom. I do some work on the laptop, and then I get some medicine, and I go to sleep, and then the fire alarm goes off. Very different. Very, very, very different accounts. And if that white Porsche is seen anywhere other than in the driveway, he's got problems.
Absolutely. He has not really thought this whole crime out. Even though it is clearly premeditated, he didn't think about all the nuanced things. The devil is in the details here. And for sure, it's all slipping right now. So, like I said, this should be an open shut case in my personal opinion, but I get they got to do their due process.
Oh, yeah. Premeditated, Matthew. I think that's clear from the allegations of prosecutors. I'm just, as I look at this and I try to figure out, like, when did the plan get kicked into gear? And it seems like the phone call that Cody played for us was kind of like the factor that kind of has to set everything in motion. So it's not like he has days, weeks, or months to plot this out. It seems like it's kind of like cramming for an exam. He waits until like 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden, now I'm going to come up with the master plan.
Listen, this is definitely premeditated. How premeditated? I have some questions. I was just thinking about that earlier. I mean, this guy gets in his car, goes over there, lights the house on fire, shoots and kills his brother, kills the occupants immediately after him and his brother are engaged in a dispute over money, where his brother is telling him that he needs it now, and he's talking down on him, and he knows that he's cutting off his lifeline of money. So, I mean, when you talk about timeline, I mean, his timeline couldn't be any worse. And it's certainly, I mean, there is evidence of him thinking it out, plotting it out, thinking about this elaborate plan and going over there. So the timeline for him, I think, is one of the worst things from an optics standpoint.
And Pascal, you mentioned the DVR and the surveillance going out. It didn't go out in his brother's house, and that's how we have that phone call, or that series of phone calls where we hear Keith kind of telling his brother, like, there's some problems here, and then saying, I need the password. You have till 8 o'clock to give me the password. Without that video, without that recording, this would be a lot more difficult for prosecutors, because yeah, you might have a phone record, but you wouldn't know exactly what was said or the tone of the conversation. But now we do. So it kind of answers that question too, as to like, why, how could there be something going on between the brothers and it's all spelled out in the victim's own words?
Yeah, this timeline, at least with this recording, definitely lays out the breadcrumbs that lead to this tragedy without a shadow of a doubt. Now, I truly think that the defense is scrambling right now because this shows motive. This all had to do with money, money, money. At the end of the day, this guy, whether it was fully premeditated or not, he jumped the gun, did what he did in hopes to maybe get some sort of financial gain out of this situation. And now it's all crumbling right there in court in real time.
And as you say that, I'm going back to, we were talking about the murder of the children, right? Like you're stabbing your niece and nephew, 7 and 11, Uncle Paulie, and it's about money? Really? That's, all right. Pascal sticking around. Matthew Barhoma, great to see you. Thank you so much. Always appreciate you coming on. Coming up next, what story are the pictures of Paul Caneiro's house telling?
One person who had the means, the motive, and the opportunity. And that person is sitting right here today.
Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendan Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair. So he killed his wife and another man.
He was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au-Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage continues Tuesday morning on Court TV.
Ordered now.
That fire was effectively a ruse designed to make it appear as if the overall Caneiro family was somehow targeted.
What a horrific case. Like it's mass murder. You take out a whole family, that's mass murder. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. So Cody, the jury's seeing a lot of pictures of Paul Caneiro's house. Give us an idea of what they're seeing.
Yeah, Vinny, a lot of photos are being published into exhibits during the trial, especially of the house after the fire. Now, these photos are believed to be the result of multiple fires at Paul Caneiro's home. And we start with an image of one of the fires itself. It looks like it's on a deck or some sort at the house. And then, Vinny, we move along to a photo after the fire. This looks to be maybe the backyard. That looks like a back deck there off to the right of the screen. And then, Vinny, we have another one on the outside of the house, another photo. This seems to be, you know, somewhere on the house, looking like it's looking towards some sort of crawl space, maybe a vent going into the basement of the house. And then, Vinny, we have a photo of inside the house as well. You see some fire damage towards the roof up there and around the window frame there. And then, Vinny, we have a photo of the gas cans. Now, these gas cans came up in court during the former fire marshal's testimony. He said he asked Paul about a gas can that was documented in the garage, but he says Paul told him he was unaware of this particular gas can. Take a listen.
You wanted to know if that gas can was his or not, and then did you show him the gas can and say, hey, is this yours?
No.
Okay, so that would have been one way to find out if it was his gas can, correct?
I asked that question because if he didn't own any gas cans and there was a gas can, that would be something that would raise a flag for me. The fact that he owned the gas can and he owned 5 or 6 of them, and by the garage door was also not something that raised a flag to me.
But Vinny, you know, not being aware of a gas can could pose a red flag because even though he told the marshal that he had 5 or 6 other gas cans in his shed, why was this one particular gas can out by the garage after these fires took place? Questions that still need answers.
And some real damage. You know, going into the trial, I wasn't sure if there was like a little mini fire, but there was a series of fires here with some real damage. Cody Thomas, great job as always. Thank you so much. That brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. What story are the pictures of Paul Caneiro's house telling? Joining me, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Randy Zellin, and still with me, host of the Pascal Show, Pascal. All right, Randy, what story are these photos of the home telling you?
Well, certainly having tried 1 or 2 arson cases in my time, I have sat there squirming in my chair listening to an arson expert, whether it's a fire marshal or a member of a fire department, explaining to a jury the difference between seeing where a fire starts and then being able to trace the travel from the start, as opposed to an instance where there are multiple points where the fire starts. An expert is able to tell where a fire starts. So think of it, a fire with one origin point as opposed to a fire with multiple origin points. Common sense. Which is likely to be the product of an arson? Answer, where there are multiple origin points for the fire to begin. So what those pictures tell me, and as your show has very eloquently explained, multiple points of origin are consistent with someone walking around starting a fire in different places of the house.
Pascal, what story are you taking away from these photos?
To me, it looks like an act of pure desperation. He grabbed the canister and just started spreading gasoline anywhere and everywhere he could. I think he was a nervous wreck after all of what he had just done before, and of course, trying to do everything he can to cover this whole thing up. Like this is like a scene from The Sopranos or something like from Goodfellas or something like that, right? So I think that he was not thinking thoroughly and just was very sporadic, very nervous, very, very much concerned about trying to cover up the crimes that he has already committed.
Yeah, the Sopranos reference might be something that would resonate with the New Jersey jury, right? There you go. Randy, let me ask you, I guess now you've established that it's clearly arson. His brother's house is torched. How difficult will it be for the defense to try to say someone else did it?
The essence of every great trial lawyer is the ability to tell a great story, because ultimately those 12 people in the box are going to gravitate towards the story that makes sense. And unfortunately for the defendant here, whether you want to claim that the man in the moon came down and did this and flew back up, where we see the defense saying someone else, some unnamed, unknown person could have done it, that law enforcement is at fault for not investigating someone else. Here, there's a slightly different nuance because the defense is suggesting that there is another brother who could be responsible for this. The problem is there's no evidence to point to anyone else having a motive. And let's all keep in mind, and again, your show does a great job of explaining this to your viewers. Yep. A prosecutor does not have to explain motive.
Randy, we ran out of time. We ran out of time. Randy Zellin, great to see you. Pascal, awesome as always. Check him out on YouTube. Unbelievable true crime show. All right. The old money is the root of all evil saying seems to be right in line with the prosecution is saying in this case. Money and an ability to sustain a lifestyle was more important to Paul Caneiro than the lives of his brother, sister-in-law, niece, and nephew. Doesn't get much worse than that. That's cold, that's evil. And my guess, the jury won't respond well to it. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues.